This is a video I made during my stay at Santusa's house in the small village of Candelaria on the countryside, about an hour and a half from Sucre on the other side of Tarabuco. Um, on the last morning that I was there, Santusa came up and asked me if I'd come down and help with a project. And I was very happy to learn that it was her and her 80-year-old mother were setting up a new loom for a shawl or a Mantón. Her and her mother are setting up a lash beam loom, which will eventually be leaning up against the wall. Typically, this process is done outside. Most of the huts or the houses in the area don't have a lot of windows, and they oftentimes have fires inside. So there's a lot of smoke. So they do it outside for the light, of course, in the space. But they're both wearing their amelias, their black wool dresses. That's kind of day-to-day wear out in the campo. And then during festivals or going to the market, they'll put their more decorative dress over top of the amelias. And her grandmother there is wearing a montero, or it's a leather, Spanish-influenced leather hat in the Tarabuco area. And you can see there that Santusa keeps her braids tied together with a decorative string with beads on it, or pom-poms, which is called a tolma. Once the loom is put together, her and her mother make sure that it's square, of course, and get everything set up properly. Once that happens, then they begin warping the loom, which is using a continuous thread, wool. This is sheep's wool, abeja, over the loom, so back and forth, and this is a long process, and two people warping the loom are in Quechua called ayawi masi, which is warping partners. And eventually here I'm called into play to partners.
Hey, hey.
Yes. See?
So right away you can tell that I'm a natural at this, and it's pretty much a seamless transition between me and the 80-year-old mother who's been doing this for about 70 years. But thankfully, Santusa is about the most patient person I've ever met. And eventually I pick up her underhand flick of the wrist, roll it off the fingers technique, but it took a while. The beginning, or the edge of the weaving, is important because Santusa is setting up the design for the stripe that runs up and down the full length of the shawl, the Mantón. So the colors have to be, there's a careful thread count, and she's got a lot of different colors and threads going all at once. She's not cutting them, she's keeping them so she comes back and uses it again. But it's quite impressive, and it takes a lot of concentration. Eventually we get beyond the edge or the paille and just make some ground with the solid maroon color. But by now my knees, back, hips are stiff and just killing me. I don't know how she does it. But this is going on probably 3 hours at this point. And eventually we finish. But then her and her mother spend another hour and a half fine-tuning the threads. And then eventually we're ready to lean it up against the wall. I was terrified that I was going to ruin the whole thing, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Eventually, once the weaving is completed, it'll be cut in half and sewn together. So you have two mirror images combined to make the shawl. Here she's getting ready to actually start the weaving, combine the threads together. I tried to pay attention and watch, each step, but she lost me several times. It's just an amazing process and amazing and creative process that I have immense respect for. Here she's using it's a bone used to strike down on the threads to make a real tight union of the threads. Chupuna is an Amari word meaning to strike someone with great force in the chest. So that's one of their secrets as far as getting a real tight weave. That and the way they spool the lamb's wool or the sheep's wool or llama or alpaca wool into a real fine thread. It's a three-step process, 3 different spools from the raw wool into the final thread that they're using here. But she's just getting going. But soon after this, before she really starts the weaving, this is going on 5 hours plus, and she's quite tired as well. And we all break for lunch and take a siesta. But an amazing process, and the end result is a beautiful piece of art.
No.
This was on my return visit in September, and I found her finishing up the tubular edge of the ribete. And here you see the decorative stitching that combines the 2 cut pieces together. And finally, she's modeling the finished product, which was absolutely beautiful. It was an amazing process, and I'm so glad that she shared it with me.